Ladies and gentlemen, every morning offers us a blank page, a new chance to write our story with hope, courage, and faith. But before we step into the day's battles and blessings, we must first anchor our hearts and minds in something eternal. Today, I want to share with you 4 powerful Psalms that have the ability to transform your morning, align your spirit, and empower your journey before the sun even rises. Psalm 23 begins with a simple yet profound declaration: "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." From the first words, we are invited into a relationship of trust and intimacy with the divine, a relationship that transcends the ordinary rhythms of life and reaches into the very essence of our being. To call God a shepherd is to acknowledge that guidance, care, and protection are not mere abstractions, but living realities that surround us in ways we often overlook. A shepherd does not merely watch from afar. A shepherd walks beside, tends to, corrects when needed, and celebrates every small growth and progress. When we understand God as our shepherd, we recognize that we are never truly alone, even when circumstances suggest abandonment or chaos. The phrase, "I shall not want," is not a mere statement of material sufficiency. It is a declaration of spiritual completeness. It is to affirm that the presence of God fills every void, answers every longing, and provides for needs that we may not even yet fully articulate. In the quiet moments before dawn, when doubt creeps into our hearts, remembering that the Lord is our shepherd becomes a shield against fear and anxiety, reminding us that our lives are under divine care. The psalm continues with a vision of green pastures and still waters, images that conjure peace, rest, and restoration. In the rhythm of daily life, we often find ourselves wandering through dry lands and turbulent waters, chasing ambitions, resolving conflicts, and trying to satisfy the insatiable demands of the world. Yet, the psalmist offers a reminder that the soul itself requires sustenance, not merely the body. Green pastures are symbolic of nourishment for the inner self, a space where the spirit can breathe, reflect, and regain its balance. Still waters are not just a physical scene, but an emblem of calmness, serenity, and clarity that the presence of God brings to a troubled heart. When we allow ourselves to dwell in these waters, even briefly, we are reminded that peace is not the absence of challenges, but the presence of divine guidance and rest amidst them. Even as the psalm progresses, it acknowledges the valleys, the shadows, and the darkness that are inevitable in human experience. "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me," the psalmist declares, reminding us that true courage is not the absence of fear, but the presence of a guiding hand that reassures and protects. The valley represents life's most profound challenges, the moments when hope seems distant and the weight of despair presses heavily upon our shoulders. Yet, the shepherd's presence transforms the valley from a place of terror into a passage of growth, a corridor through which we learn resilience, patience, and faith. The rod and staff of the shepherd, symbols of discipline and guidance, become instruments of comfort, showing us that even correction and challenge are expressions of care designed to keep us on the path of righteousness and fulfillment. As we reflect on this psalm in the morning hours, before the demands of the day press in upon us, we are reminded that our inner peace and clarity are not contingent upon external circumstances. The shepherd leads us beside still waters, restores our souls, and prepares us for the paths ahead. There is an inherent wisdom in recognizing that God's guidance is both gentle and firm, both nurturing and corrective. We are invited to surrender our anxieties, our plans, and even our desires into the care of the divine, knowing that the shepherd's vision far exceeds our own. When we release the illusion of control, we discover a freedom that comes from trust and a strength that arises from dependence on a power greater than ourselves. The psalm does not shy away from the realities of life's complexities. It acknowledges conflict, the presence of enemies, and the challenges that confront us daily. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. It says, illustrating that divine provision is not limited by circumstance or opposition. Even when we face adversity, the blessings of God are not withheld. They are present, ready to sustain, nurture, and embolden us. This prepares the heart to embrace gratitude, even when the world around us seems ungrateful or hostile. The imagery of a table spread before enemies speaks to abundance that defies logic, a generosity that overflows in spite of opposition, and a peace that is untouchable by the forces of negativity. To internalize this is to step into a mindset of victory, not because life is easy, but because God's guidance equips us to navigate difficulty with courage, grace, and dignity. Oil, anointing, and overflowing cups are metaphors for blessings, joy, and abundance that arise when we align ourselves with the shepherd's care. The act of anointing in ancient times symbolized consecration, protection, and honor. In a modern interpretation, it reminds us that our lives, when surrendered to God, become vessels of purpose and channels of positivity for others. The cup running over illustrates that divine provision is never minimal. It is abundant, continuous, and generous. When we start our day with this awareness, we are empowered to approach challenges with a mindset that abundance, guidance, and restoration are always within reach. Every thought, word, and action is imbued with the consciousness of being guided, nurtured, and protected, which transforms ordinary mornings into moments of sacred preparation. To meditate upon Psalm 23 before beginning the day is to establish a foundation of peace, confidence, and moral clarity. It is a reminder that our paths are not random, our struggles not meaningless, and our victories not solely our own doing. By internalizing the shepherd's guidance, we cultivate a rhythm of trust that shapes our decisions, interactions, and perspectives. The psalm teaches us that life is a balance of rest and action, challenge and comfort, shadow and light. Walking through the day with these words in our hearts equips us to meet both mundane tasks and monumental challenges with a steady spirit, knowing that the hand that guides us is both gentle and omnipotent. Moreover, the psalm invites reflection on personal responsibility within the framework of divine guidance. While the shepherd leads, we are called to follow. While provision is guaranteed, we are called to receive it with gratitude and stewardship. The partnership between human action and divine oversight is delicate and profound. We are reminded that surrender does not mean passivity, and trust does not negate effort. Instead, Psalm 23 encourages us to engage life fully, with courage born from faith, resilience drawn from awareness of divine accompaniment, and wisdom cultivated through contemplation. Each morning becomes an opportunity to rehearse this trust, to reaffirm our alignment with guidance that transcends our understanding, and to prepare for the unpredictable turns of the day with composure and assurance. The imagery of valleys, pastures, and waters also speaks to cycles of life, suggesting that rest, renewal, and challenge are all necessary components of a fully lived experience. Mornings are the perfect time to internalize this awareness, to remind ourselves that the day ahead will bring both difficulty and delight, and that through every moment we are shepherded, protected, and restored. Psalm 23 teaches that peace is not found in the absence of struggle, but in the recognition of constant guidance and care. In practical terms, reading this psalm before the day begins strengthens mental clarity, emotional resilience, and spiritual grounding. It cultivates a mindset where fear is diminished, confidence is nurtured, and the heart is poised to embrace both joy and challenge with equal grace. The simplicity of Psalm 23 belies its profound depth. Each word resonates with layers of meaning, inviting contemplation, meditation, and action. By starting the day with these words, we attune ourselves to a higher rhythm, one that acknowledges the inevitability of trials, but simultaneously affirms the certainty of guidance. The shepherd metaphor reminds us that no matter how lost or uncertain we feel, there is a presence that walks with us, leading us toward nourishment, safety, and restoration. In doing so, it teaches us patience, humility, and trust, qualities that permeate every interaction, decision, and thought. The Psalm's message is timeless, transcending culture, era, and circumstance. Its wisdom speaks to the human experience in ways that are deeply personal, yet universally applicable. Each morning, as we prepare for the day's demands, repeating or reflecting on its verses allows us to center ourselves, to cultivate gratitude, to anticipate the guidance that will unfold, and to move through the world with a heart unburdened by fear. Through these words, we are reminded that life's challenges are not to be faced in isolation, that our journey is part of a larger story, and that the shepherd's presence is the guiding light that illuminates our path, restores our souls, and shapes our destiny in ways seen and unseen. Psalm 27 opens with a declaration of unshakable faith and confidence. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? From the very first words, we are called to confront fear, doubt, and uncertainty with a courage rooted not in our own strength, but in the timeless presence of the divine. Fear is a natural part of the human experience, a shadow that follows ambition, desire, and responsibility. Yet this psalm reminds us that fear is not the master of the soul. It is merely a signal, a challenge to our faith, and a call to trust in something far greater than ourselves. To call God our light is to acknowledge a source of illumination that exposes deception, clarifies direction, and dispels darkness. In the quiet moments before the day begins, when our minds are still clouded by worry or hesitation, remembering that the Lord is our light becomes a beacon of hope and a source of inner strength. The psalmist continues with the assertion that God is salvation, a presence that rescues, protects, and restores. Salvation, in this context, is not only about deliverance from physical danger, but also about liberation from doubt, fear, and self-imposed limitations. When we internalize this truth, we realize that courage is not the absence of fear, but the recognition that our fears can be met with divine support and guidance. Life presents many situations where uncertainty looms, where the path ahead is unclear, and where opposition seems overwhelming. In these moments, Psalm 27 serves as a spiritual compass, pointing us toward confidence that arises from faith rather than circumstance. The question, "Whom shall I fear?" is both rhetorical and transformative, prompting introspection and awakening a sense of fearlessness that is grounded in trust and awareness of a higher power guiding our steps. The psalmist's desire to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of life reflects an aspiration for constant connection, contemplation, and presence. Dwelling in God's house is not limited to a physical location. It is a state of spiritual alignment where one's heart, mind, and actions are attuned to divine guidance. This dwelling cultivates courage because it reminds the believer that no matter how fierce the storms of life, there exists a sanctuary of strength, peace, and clarity. To embrace this dwelling is to cultivate resilience in the face of opposition, hope in the face of despair, and confidence in the face of uncertainty. Each morning, before the demands of the day press in, reflecting on this dwelling allows the spirit to root itself in a place of unwavering assurance where fear has no permanent residence and courage becomes the natural response to life's challenges. Psalm 27 speaks of seeking God's presence and guidance, emphasizing the importance of faith as both shield and inspiration. One thing have I desired of the Lord, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. This singular focus, this unwavering pursuit of divine presence, cultivates a mindset where courage and confidence are nurtured. Life often distracts with competing desires, obligations, and distractions. But the psalmist's intent reminds us that anchoring our hearts in what is eternal and unwavering fortifies us against the waves of fear that arise from temporary circumstances. Courage, therefore, is not merely reactive. It is cultivated through intentional seeking, reflection, and alignment with what is true, righteous, and empowering. When we start the day with this perspective, we prepare ourselves to face challenges not from a place of doubt, but from a position of spiritual clarity and purpose. The psalmist acknowledges adversaries and opposition, recognizing that life is not devoid of conflict or difficulty. Yet, even in the presence of enemies, the psalmist maintains confidence, knowing that divine support is greater than any threat. When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, they stumbled and fell. This passage teaches that courage is not the absence of opposition, but the assurance that the power guiding us surpasses any force arrayed against us. Fear loses its dominion when we recognize that we are accompanied by strength far beyond our own, and that obstacles, no matter how daunting, are opportunities to exercise trust, perseverance, and resilience. Morning reflection on this truth equips us to navigate daily challenges with dignity, wisdom, and boldness, transforming potential anxiety into proactive engagement with life's uncertainties. Confidence in Psalm 27 arises not from self-reliance, but from understanding the constancy and reliability of God's presence. The psalmist's heart is anchored in the knowledge that the divine will not abandon, mislead, or fail. This certainty allows for a fearless approach to both mundane and extraordinary challenges. In practical terms, the psalm reminds us that fear is often a result of perceiving isolation or inadequacy. By internalizing divine presence, we shift from vulnerability to empowerment. Confidence emerges as a natural byproduct of trust, a state where hesitation diminishes, decision-making is clarified, and the soul steps forward with assurance. Beginning the day with this mindset transforms ordinary moments into acts of courage, turning the simple act of facing tasks or engaging with others into a demonstration of faith realized through action. The psalmist's expression of hope and expectation emphasizes that courage is forward-looking, oriented toward growth, opportunity, and fulfillment. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Patience and anticipation are integral to courage, suggesting that fear often arises from impatience, uncertainty, or desire for immediate resolution. By embracing a posture of waiting with faith, the believer cultivates endurance, clarity, and a resilient spirit. Strengthened hearts are not merely fortified against adversity. They are prepared to embrace joy, opportunity, and blessing with equal intensity. This balance of courage and patience equips the soul to navigate the complexities of life with poise, grace, and unwavering determination. Confidence, as described in this psalm, also includes the awareness of divine guidance in decision-making, direction, and protection. Knowing that our steps are guided alleviates anxiety and enhances clarity. Each morning, when we internalize this truth, we equip ourselves to face choices, conversations, and challenges with a sense of purpose rooted in spiritual alignment. Courage becomes a living, breathing quality that informs every interaction and action, fostering integrity, resilience, and empowerment. Fear is no longer a master. It is a signal to deepen trust and reaffirm alignment with divine guidance, transforming potential hesitation into decisive, confident action. Psalm 27 intertwines courage with joy, hope, and perseverance, suggesting that true bravery is inseparable from an understanding of God's sustaining presence. This courage is not performative. It does not demand recognition or approval from others. It is deeply internal, a steady flame that illuminates the heart and mind, shaping perception and response. Life's trials, no matter how complex, are met with confidence that transcends circumstance, rooted in a spiritual awareness that fear cannot extinguish. By beginning the day with this awareness, the believer sets a tone of empowerment, approaching both challenges and blessings with a heart fortified by courage, a mind sharpened by trust, and a spirit nurtured by unwavering faith. Psalm 27 also teaches that courage is relational. It is cultivated through communion with the divine, reflection, and the acknowledgement of guidance beyond the self. We are reminded that human strength alone is insufficient for life's demands, and that seeking support, spiritual, communal, or reflective, is a mark of wisdom rather than weakness. Morning meditation on this psalm instills a rhythm of openness to guidance, patience in action, and fearlessness in the face of uncertainty. Each breath, each thought, and each intention becomes infused with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing we are supported, led, and watched over by a power that surpasses understanding. The psalmist's repeated assurances emphasize resilience, reinforcing that courage is a daily practice, cultivated moment by moment. Life's unpredictability demands a preparedness of spirit that is nurtured through reflection, prayer, and awareness of divine presence. The morning hours, often unburdened by the rush of tasks, provide an ideal space for internalizing these truths, allowing courage and confidence to take root before the day's challenges arise. Through contemplation, the heart is steadied, the mind clarified, and the spirit emboldened, creating a foundation from which all actions flow with intentionality, grace, and assurance. Confidence in the psalm extends beyond personal protection. It includes the anticipation of blessing, fulfillment, and joy. Courage is not only defensive but expansive, allowing the soul to step into opportunity, embrace purpose, and act with integrity. By reflecting on this psalm before the day begins, we prepare not only for trials but also for triumphs, equipping ourselves to navigate each moment with discernment, faith, and poise. The guidance, protection, and encouragement described in Psalm 27 create a template for living courageously, demonstrating that true bravery arises from trust, hope, and alignment with a power greater than our own understanding. Psalm 91 is a sanctuary of assurance, a spiritual fortress that reminds the believer of the unshakable protection and steadfast care of the divine. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. From the very first words, we are invited into intimacy with God, into a sacred space where safety, rest, and security are not contingent on the changing circumstances of life, but rooted in the eternal presence of a higher power. To dwell in the secret place is to cultivate a heart and mind attuned to divine guidance, a consciousness that finds refuge beyond the turbulence of the world. In this dwelling, there is a profound sense of peace and assurance that the storms of life, whether visible or hidden, cannot penetrate the shield created by faith and alignment with God's will. It is in these quiet, reflective moments, often in the early hours before the world stirs, that the psalmist's words resonate most deeply, reminding us that protection is not just external but also internal, safeguarding the spirit, the mind, and the heart from fear, doubt, and despair. The psalm goes on to declare that those who trust in God are granted deliverance from snares, pestilence, and fear. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. The imagery of feathers and wings evokes tenderness, care, and shelter, a divine embrace that cushions the soul against life's uncertainties. The metaphor reminds us that protection is not always visible or dramatic. Often, it is gentle, consistent, and quietly sustaining. The act of trusting under the wings of the Almighty requires surrender, a letting go of the illusion of control, and the embrace of faith that does not waver in the face of challenge. In modern life, when threats and anxieties take many forms, this psalm serves as a reminder that divine protection transcends circumstance, offering safety in the midst of chaos, confidence in moments of uncertainty, and peace in times of fear. Psalm 91 speaks to the universality of divine protection, emphasizing that it extends not only to ourselves but to those we love. The psalmist writes of angels being commissioned to guard, guiding, and preserving every step. This imagery reflects a divine system of care, a spiritual infrastructure designed to keep us safe even when we are unaware. To meditate on these words each morning is to acknowledge that protection is not a passive state. It is active, engaged, and constantly present. It reminds us that our lives are surrounded by forces of goodness and guidance, and that fear loses its power when we recognize the layers of unseen protection that envelop us. In doing so, we cultivate a mindset of courage, resilience, and reassurance that informs every action, every decision, and every interaction throughout the day. The psalm further emphasizes deliverance from danger and adversity, promising freedom from the snares that may be set in our path. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. Life presents both visible and invisible challenges. Moments when danger seems immediate, and others when it lurks subtly in the corners of our existence. The psalmist acknowledges both, affirming that fear of either is rendered powerless by divine presence. Morning reflection on this promise allows the believer to step into the day with a spirit fortified against worry, anxiety, and trepidation. It cultivates a confidence that even when threats arise, whether in the form of conflict, loss, or uncertainty, there is a guiding hand ensuring that we navigate safely, that we are shielded, and that we emerge with our integrity and peace intact. Psalm 91 also speaks of victory and triumph over adversity, reminding us that protection does not merely preserve life, but empowers the soul to rise above circumstance. Because he hath set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. The relationship between trust, love, and divine safeguarding is emphasized here, suggesting that protection is deepened when the heart is aligned with God, when the soul recognizes its dependence on something greater than itself, and when life is lived with consciousness of the sacred. Trust becomes active. It is not simply belief, but a lived awareness that informs choices, mitigates fear, and strengthens resolve. By beginning the day with these reflections, we cultivate an inner sanctuary, a spiritual armor that equips us to face the uncertainties of life with courage, composure, and an unshakable sense of security. The psalmist's repeated assurances reinforce the reliability and constancy of divine protection. No evil shall befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. These words do not promise a life free from difficulty, but they promise presence, guidance, and preservation amidst adversity. In a world where unpredictability is constant, these verses remind the believer that true safety is found not in external conditions, but in alignment with the divine, in dwelling within the sacred space of trust and faith. Morning meditation on these promises primes the heart for resilience, for discernment, and for calm engagement with the world. It establishes a foundation of courage that carries through tasks, interactions, and challenges, allowing us to act with integrity, purpose, and confidence in the security provided by God's unwavering presence. Psalm 91 also emphasizes the role of awareness and attentiveness in divine protection. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. Protection is not passive. It requires recognition, reception, and trust. By consciously dwelling on these assurances, we align ourselves with the guiding forces, opening our hearts and minds to the subtle ways in which divine care manifests. Each step, each decision, each interaction becomes infused with awareness of oversight and guidance. This awareness cultivates mindfulness, grounding us in the present while ensuring that we are not paralyzed by fear or uncertainty. The angels in this psalm represent the unseen yet active forces that support, guard, and direct us, highlighting that protection is holistic, encompassing body, mind, and spirit. Psalm 91 also addresses the reality of threats, trials, and adversities, framing them as opportunities for faith to be exercised and trust to be strengthened. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. The magnitude of these numbers emphasizes that protection is not partial or selective. It is comprehensive, ensuring safety even when surrounding circumstances are tumultuous or overwhelming. In life, challenges may appear numerous and formidable, yet the psalm reassures that the individual anchored in faith is shielded, not by absence of risk, but by presence of divine safeguarding. This distinction is vital. Courage and confidence are cultivated not by avoiding life's storms, but by stepping into them with the knowledge that we are not alone, that each moment is guided, and that our protection is assured in the spiritual realm. The psalmist's words also cultivate a sense of intimacy and personal relationship with God. Because he hath known my name. Protection is enhanced through recognition, acknowledgement, and connection. It is relational rather than mechanical, a dialogue of trust, alignment between the believer and the divine. By starting the day with this awareness, we reinforce the bond that ensures guidance, shelter, and support. Courage is born of intimacy, and confidence emerges from the certainty that we are known, seen, and cared for in ways that transcend understanding. This relationship transforms the perception of danger, the experience of challenge, and the interpretation of uncertainty, replacing fear with faith, anxiety with assurance, and vulnerability with resilience. The psalm encourages active engagement with life under the assurance of divine protection. Protection is not passive. It empowers action, enables responsibility, and nurtures boldness. When we embrace these truths each morning, we are better prepared to face professional, personal, and spiritual challenges. Decisions are made with clarity, interactions are approached with integrity, and moments of uncertainty are met with composure. Each day becomes an opportunity to exercise faith in practice, to live courageously, and to demonstrate the tangible benefits of dwelling under divine care. In this way, Psalm 91 does more than promise safety. It equips the soul to engage fully with life, grounded in trust, fortified by assurance, and confident in divine accompaniment. The imagery of shelter, wings, and angels also speaks to relational and communal protection. As we are guarded and guided, so too can we extend care, support, and encouragement to others. Dwelling in the secret place, trusting in the shadow of the Almighty, inspires empathy, courage, and generosity. The psalm reminds us that protection is both received and shared, creating ripples of safety and blessing that extend beyond the individual to family, community, and society. Morning meditation on this psalm aligns the believer with a consciousness of both receiving and giving protection, nurturing a heart capable of courageously facing life while safeguarding others in acts of care, vigilance, and kindness. Psalm 91 ultimately transforms fear into empowerment, uncertainty into confidence, and vulnerability into resilience. Each verse, each metaphor, each promise encourages the believer to approach life with a heart rooted in divine protection. The morning hours are ideal for internalizing these truths, allowing the soul to prepare for challenges, embrace blessings, and navigate the unpredictable nature of existence with courage and assurance. By meditating on these words, we equip ourselves with spiritual armor, a shield that protects the mind, heart, and body, fostering an inner strength that endures beyond circumstance, transcends fear, and sustains us through every trial. Psalm 121 begins with a question that seems simple, yet carries profound weight. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. In these words lies a call to awareness, a recognition that life's journey is filled with challenges, obstacles, and moments of uncertainty, yet help and guidance are always available from a source higher than our own understanding. To lift the eyes is to shift perspective, to move from a focus on limitations, fears, and the weight of the world to an awareness of the divine support that surrounds us. In the early hours of the morning, when the mind is quiet and the heart is open, this lifting of the eyes becomes more than a gesture. It is a deliberate act of faith, a conscious decision to seek guidance, strength, and clarity from a source eternal and unshakable. Life can often feel heavy, burdens pressing upon shoulders, responsibilities stretching beyond our capacity, yet Psalm 121 invites us to remember that there is a higher vantage point, a perspective in which our struggles are not insurmountable, and our journey is guided by a hand that never falters. The psalmist immediately provides the answer to the question posed, affirming that help comes not from human strength, circumstance, or fleeting fortune, but from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. This declaration reminds us that while human effort is necessary, it is not sufficient on its own. True aid, true provision, and true guidance arise from aligning oneself with the divine. Morning reflection on this truth sets a tone for the day, fostering humility, gratitude, and awareness that we are not alone in our endeavors. Each step, each decision, each challenge we face is approached with the understanding that we are supported by a power greater than ourselves, a source of wisdom, strength, and protection that transcends the limits of human capacity. In lifting our eyes, we simultaneously lift our spirits, our hopes, and our confidence, opening ourselves to receive guidance that surpasses understanding and protection that surpasses human imagining. Psalm 121 speaks of vigilance, of a watchful presence that neither slumbers nor sleeps. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. In life, moments of vulnerability, distraction, and uncertainty are inevitable. We may falter, we may stumble, and yet the psalm reassures us that the divine is ever vigilant, ever attentive, safeguarding every step and watching over every moment. This watchfulness is not passive, it is active, engaged, and continuous. The awareness that God's protection never rests instills confidence, courage, and perseverance. As we begin the day, we are reminded that our plans, our journeys, and our interactions are observed and guided, and that no detail, no matter how small, escapes divine attention. This understanding transforms fear into trust, hesitation into decisive action, and anxiety into calm assurance, knowing that every step is accompanied by a guiding hand. The psalm emphasizes comprehensive protection, ensuring safety in all directions, circumstances, and times. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. Here, preservation is holistic, encompassing physical safety, spiritual integrity, and emotional well-being. Life's challenges are not only external but internal, arising in the form of doubt, temptation, and emotional turmoil. Psalm 121 assures that divine care attends to the entirety of our existence, guarding not only the body from harm, but the soul from despair, confusion, and misdirection. Beginning the day with this awareness equips the believer to navigate moments of adversity with a calm and grounded spirit, to approach decisions with clarity and discernment, and to interact with others from a place of peace rather than fear. This preservation is a promise that transcends circumstance, reinforcing that life's uncertainties are met not with helplessness, but with guided assurance and steady protection. The psalmist draws attention to protection across all time, both in the present and for the future. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. This expansive vision of care invites the believer to recognize that divine guidance is not limited to a single moment or event. It is continuous, extending through the entirety of life's journey. In practical terms, this means that every step we take, every path we walk, and every choice we make is supported by a presence that understands the broader tapestry of our lives. Morning reflection on this eternal protection reinforces resilience, instills courage, and nurtures confidence, reminding us that our efforts are never isolated, our paths never unobserved, and our actions never disconnected from the overarching guidance that sustains us. Psalm 121 emphasizes the reliability and constancy of divine help, qualities that contrast sharply with the unpredictability of the human experience. Mountains may rise, obstacles may appear, and storms may descend, yet the psalm assures that help is unfailing. The believer is invited to internalize this reliability, to anchor the heart in the knowledge that divine guidance and protection do not fluctuate with circumstance or mood. Morning meditation on this truth equips us to face the day with equanimity, fostering a mindset where challenges are approached with strategy rather than panic, setbacks are met with patience rather than despair, and victories are received with gratitude rather than arrogance. In this way, lifting the eyes to God cultivates a balance of humility and confidence, recognition of dependence and empowerment, surrender and active engagement. The psalm also emphasizes personal responsibility in the context of divine help. While God's protection is steadfast, the believer is called to lift the eyes, to seek guidance, and to maintain awareness. Help is offered and received in relationship, in partnership between human effort and divine presence. Morning reflection on this dynamic nurtures attentiveness, mindfulness, and intentionality. Each task undertaken, each interaction engaged, each decision made is done with consciousness of being guided, supported, and protected. This awareness transforms ordinary moments into opportunities for growth, courage, and reflection, where the believer's actions are both empowered by divine assistance and enriched by the spiritual alignment cultivated through intentional lifting of the eyes. Psalm 121 underscores the universality of divine help, affirming that assistance is available in every circumstance, for every challenge, and across all dimensions of life. Mountains and valleys alike, joy and sorrow, certainty and uncertainty, none are exempt from the protective and guiding presence of God. Morning contemplation of this universality nurtures resilience, courage, and adaptability. The believer is prepared to navigate changing circumstances, unforeseen difficulties, and unexpected opportunities with a sense of assurance and preparedness, knowing that the guidance and help available are not situational but constant. This understanding instills confidence in decision-making, steadiness in relationships, and clarity in navigating life's complexities, allowing the soul to operate from a space of empowerment rather than fear. The psalmist also emphasizes that help comes from above, from a vantage point beyond human limitation and understanding. From whence cometh my help? This vertical perspective encourages the believer to shift focus away from human-centered solutions and toward a higher source of wisdom, strength, and provision. In the morning, as the world is still quiet and reflective energy is accessible, lifting the eyes metaphorically and spiritually aligns the heart with this higher source. It encourages reliance on guidance that surpasses personal understanding, fostering trust that even in uncertainty, a path exists that is guided, protected, and illuminated by divine awareness. This alignment transforms fear into courage, doubt into confidence, and hesitation into action, setting the tone for the day's interactions, decisions, and engagements. Psalm 121 also emphasizes attentiveness, awareness, and receptivity to divine help. The act of lifting the eyes is deliberate. It requires intention, focus, and presence. Morning practice of this act cultivates mindfulness, strengthening the believer's ability to recognize guidance, discern direction, and perceive protection in subtle and overt forms. By starting the day with this awareness, each step taken becomes intentional, Each choice becomes informed by spiritual alignment, and each interaction is approached with clarity, patience, and confidence. The psalm teaches that divine help is not automatic or inert. It is relational, participatory, and accessible to those who actively seek, lift their gaze, and align themselves with higher guidance. Psalm 121 ultimately transforms the experience of life by shifting the believer's perspective from fear, limitation, and uncertainty to trust, empowerment, and assurance. Lifting the eyes to the hills is both metaphorical and practical, representing a conscious decision to seek guidance, embrace protection, and cultivate confidence. Morning meditation on these truths fortifies the soul, nurtures courage, and instills a sense of purpose, equipping the believer to navigate challenges, opportunities, and interactions with clarity, resilience, and spiritual awareness. The psalm teaches that no matter the complexity of the day, the unpredictability of circumstances, or the magnitude of obstacles, help is ever present, guidance is unfailing, and protection is comprehensive, ensuring that the believer is never alone, never forsaken, and always empowered to engage fully with life, grounded in faith, trust, and the lifting of the eyes toward divine presence.